have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 129. And coming at you today, we've got Major here. We've got Tara coming back. And we've got the king himself, Scott Engel. How you doing, Scott?
Good. Thanks for having me. That might be the coolest open I've ever been involved with.
You know what? I can't even take credit for that. We've got people that put that kind of stuff on together. I'm just a talking head when it's all said and done. So there's a lot more smarter people than I am, like Major and Tara here. And then we've got our graphics team doing the little stuff behind the scenes there. So, hey, one to another. I mean, you've been around. You've seen some things. ESPN, I mean, Rotoballer. I mean, we can go on and on about these other, the game day there, all these other organizations and publications that you've worked for. You've seen some pretty good people do some pretty good things in your time, I imagine.
Yeah, you know, it's I've been in the fantasy industry since the first boom in the mid 1990s with starting out with CBS Sportsline. I was like one of the first. I was the first fantasy content guy ever over there before it was even CBS Sportsline, when it was Sportsline USA, before CBS even got a piece of it. Now I'm at the game day, doing a lot of fantasy content over there, sports betting content, because, you know, that's where the industry's going now, and it being legalized in so many states. But it's been a really fun ride. You know, I've gotten to work with a lot of good people, and you know, I career-wise, I probably wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
Well, speaking of good people, the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast is presented to you by the Fantasy Points Media Group. There's some guys over there that have been around as well. John Hansen, another one of those guys. There's very few. There's like that Mount Rushmore of fantasy analysis there. There's yourself. There's John Hansen. There's guys like Paul Charchian, Bob Harris. You guys have been around for some time, and we're going to get into this story, your story in particular, a little bit later on the behind the grind aspect of things here. But first, we want to kind of dive into maybe a little bit of something more relevant right now for those who are looking for that kind of fantasy tidbit of information. How about the Kings Dynasty Fantasy Football value targets for startup drafts? Who are some of those guys that you're targeting right now?
Yeah, that's my newest article over at rotobowler.com. Thanks a lot. You know, specifically, but for any platform, like for the Fantasy Football Players Championship, where I'm doing 2 slow dynasty drafts right now, and I identified players at like every level of the value tree. Like right now, Dalvin Cook has a dynasty ADP of 37.75 because I believe that dynasty players will look 8-10 years down the line, but you want to win now. So much changes within 3 to 4 years. You know, Dalvin Cook's 27 years old. You could probably get another 2 to 3 years out of him. So I don't look at somebody being 27 years old and not. I think at 37.75 overall, I think that's a good value. Also, Hassan Hankins at 274.17 in both my dynasty leagues. I have Derrick Henry as my starting running back. He's going to be the obvious number 2, I think. Juju Smith-Schuster at 90.42 ADP. He's only 25 years old. He's got to prove it with the Chiefs this year, and I think he's automatically going to be their number 1 wide receiver. Jalen Tolbert of the Cowboys, 167.7 ADP. Michael Gallup doesn't stay healthy. Dak Prescott is a good downfield thrower. Also, Alan Lazard's very interesting at 174.7. Nobody's really looking at Lazard and giving him any respect, but sometimes, and you know this from your guys' football experience, sometimes if a front office is comfortable going with a player, who are we as outsiders to basically say, okay, that's not going to work out well? If the Packers have confidence as a front office and Aaron Rodgers hasn't really busted out and saying, I'm so upset that we haven't signed a notable wide receiver. No Beckham, no Jarvis Landry. We didn't try to make a trade for Tyreek Hill, etc. It seems like the Packers are comfortable going with Alan Lazard. So I think you have to take a crack on him, not only in dynasty leagues, but also in seasonal leagues. Because if the team's going to ticket him for a significant role, I think we have to pay attention to that. Because, we all know our stuff. You mentioned some great people, but in an NFL front office, sometimes they know things or have certain angles that we may not know or agree with.
Right.
So we're going to ask you about a little bit here, some of these other players potentially that were on that trade value chart. I mean, we got to talk about Cole Kmet. I mean, he's basically the main guy on. You go click that link, it's Cole Kmet that you're clicking on right there. But you mentioned something I find very interesting. When we're looking at Dynasty, one of the things that lots of fantasy managers maybe don't do is look at that 3-year kind of period. Stay in that 3-year, kind of working in 3-year intervals. And I think a lot of people, like you said there, are looking 9 years down the road. Where's that value going to be 9 years from now? Well, I can't even tell you what I'm doing next week, let alone what a bunch of NFL players are going to be doing in 5, 6, 7 years. So I agree with you that, I mean, we have to focus on that 3-year period of production, or how we perceive that production to be here moving forward within a 3-year period. I think anything beyond that, I think it's crazy. There's nothing guaranteed beyond today or tomorrow. So why are we looking as fantasy managers, especially in Dynasty, 9, 10 years down the road?
Well, one point I have to make about that is for some reason, everybody has the age 30 marker in their head as for when everybody all of a sudden gets old.
Yeah.
Because that's an old fantasy football axiom about when running backs decline. So as soon as people hit age 28 at any position, people start devaluing them in Dynasty. And I think that's a mistake, because you just want to look at that 3 to 4 year window. If you don't want a 27-year-old wide receiver who's in his prime, I think there's a problem. The late great Mike Taglieri, Fantasy Pros used to do an annual study that I mentioned in this Roto-Bowler article about when fantasy football wide receivers actually age out in production. It's not till at least age 33. So if you're going to let a 28, 29, 30-year-old wide receiver drop down the board to me, can help me win this year, I'm going to do it. If you're going to let a 27-year-old running back drop down the board to me like Dalvin Cook, I'm going to do it. I'll worry about replacing him 2-3 years down the line, because I'll kick that can down the road. Exactly. Tight ends, that can vary. But with quarterbacks, I would hear people saying things about like, oh, he's 33, he's old. Like, not for a quarterback. The age is different in every position. And sometimes at running back, it's not just about being 30. It's more about tread on your tires. You're a historian, Matt. Look how quickly Clinton Portis was done before the age of 30, before workload. And then Tiki Barber, late in his career, started becoming a running back full-time and played well after 30. So you can't just look at, say, age 30 and say, oh, I don't want that guy. I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he said, oh, I was looking at 2 players, and I took one over the other because one was 23 and the other was 26. And I said, to me, that's not really much of a difference. For a 26-year-old wide receiver, I can get another 6-7 years of good production.
That's so funny that you say.
Go ahead, Tara.
Sorry, I was going to say that's so funny that you say that, because I see people kind of, slightly downgrading Terry McLaurin because he's a little bit older in that age gap of when he came into the NFL. So it's funny how people look at a 26-year-old and think, nah, he's getting up there, but he's still got plenty of time left.
He's going to be 27 in September, which gives me 7, 8, 9, 32. At least 5 more years of good production. And if you're looking down 5 years in production, unless you have a crystal ball or something, you're not going to be able to tell. The state of your team changes so much from year to year. It's going to change so much from 3 years down the line. I look at my dynasty teams from last year, and there's already with a difference with some guy. Like I have T. Higgins on one of my dynasty rosters. The value is so much more appealing than it was say a year ago. James Robinson, it's much lower than it was a year ago.
I like that old adage there. We're talking, especially when we talk about rookie drafts and talk about that tread on the tires, because not all treads are created the same. You can go to Goodyear, get some good treads. You go to Walmart, it looks new, but it ain't new. It's like not what you want, right? Walmart tires ain't the same as like Goodyear tires and vice versa. But Brian Robinson, for me, is one of those guys we don't hear about. He's older. He's already 23, 24 years old, coming into the NFL this year, but he doesn't have that tread on the tires yet. He sat behind some good running backs, being Najee Harris there at Alabama. He got his one opportunity this year. He produced, and the first thing we're talking about is A, his age, and B, he doesn't have any tread on his tires. It seems like rookies are like, oh, he's got too much tread, or he doesn't have enough tread on his tires. When we're coming out of this rookie process, as fantasy analysts, we can't seem to make up our mind what we want to value.
Yeah, some players will come out of college and they'll say, "Oh, he's an older rookie. I don't like him as much." Why? You know, there's really no. I haven't. I've posed that question to a few people, and they're kind of stunned that I've asked it because I think there's a blanket. Oh, if he's an older rookie, I don't like him as much. Well, why? He still played very well in college. It's not like he's coming into the league at 35 years old. I don't understand. I'm sure somebody watching the show will explain it. We'll have a nice debate, but ageism in fantasy football, it's a terrible thing.
That's so true. I've never looked at it that way because I was one of those guys who did that to gosh, what's the running back from the Steelers right now? I did that to him the year ago. Yeah, I was like, oh, he's an older rookie. I don't know if I want him. But now that you said it that way, I was so dumb. Like the way you explained it.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying it's something so simple that you don't even think of. You just kind of, go with.
You get kind of into like we have these reflex things that we do as fantasy players over the years. These axioms that we get tied to,
exactly,
etc. And look, at some point, everybody declines, but I think we can't overrate it either.
Great point.
So let's kind of kick back into this value targets here for your startup drafts real quick. Just kind of give us you kind of mentioned Dalvin Cook there. You mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. Who's that tight end? Is that Cole Kmet? Is that tight end that you're kind of valuing right now?
Yeah, I have a few there in my new article on rotobowler.com. Kmet is he's heading into that third year, I believe, with an FFPC ADP of 123. And really, Darnell Mooney is in the number one. They drafted Velus Jones. They haven't given Justin Fields too much to work with, but a young quarterback very often, that's not totally across the board, will lean on his tight end, and these two guys are familiar with each other. I think Kmet can easily be a top 8 fantasy tight end this year.
All right, so basically, to recap, the Knights at Scott the King's roundtable here. We've got Juju Smith-Schuster, we got Alan Lazard, we got Dalvin Cook, we got Cole Kmet. We need anyone else? We got our
Peoples Jones.
Oh, that's one of my
guys.
There
we go. There's a little DPJ.
Yeah, DPJ. I like him a lot. I know a lot of people are talking about Bell. I like the skill set. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, the FFP Dynasty ADP right now is 203.08. And we saw some real big play flashes from him last year, and now he's going to be playing with Deshaun Watson. And we all saw what Deshaun Watson can do with a deep receiver with Will Fuller. Donovan Peoples-Jones right now is one of my favorite sleepers of the year already.
I'm right there with you. But let's talk about another sleeper. Let's talk about Tua. Is it make or break? What's going on this year for him? Like, what do you think?
What a lot of NFL teams are doing right now is, you guys know, at least more than half of the NFL teams don't have the ideal situation at quarterback they want. They don't have their franchise quarterback. So what they're pivoting to doing is saying, okay, you see teams like Miami, the Jets, Seattle, Pittsburgh, say, okay, well, let's surround our quarterback with as much playmaking talent as possible. And then all the pressure will not be on him to carry the offense. He can lean on the playmakers. And that's what they've done in Miami. They've given him 4 running backs. They gave him Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. They now have Cedric Wilson there as well. Mike Gesicki hasn't been as good as we wanted to, but still, there's a lot of playmaking talent around Tua. There's everything for him to succeed right now, I think, and put up some respectable fantasy numbers.
Yeah, he has like 100 running backs to choose from as well. So they're stacking the cards for him. What do you think about Tyreek in that new role over there in Miami?
Obviously it's not like playing with Mahomes, but as long as Tua can get him the ball, he can do so much for him. It was the perfect complement, obviously, with Mahomes because Mahomes can get him deep. Obviously, Tua doesn't have the same deep arm, but if he gets him the ball, he'll still make a lot of things happen after the catch. Obviously, you bump him down a few notches. No longer a late first-round pick, but still a very high-end fantasy wide receiver, too, this year.
I think one of the things we've seen across the NFL are teams that may be unsure about a quarterback, surrounding them with big-time players at wide receiver to give them that opportunity to see if this is our quarterback moving forward. But the one thing I want to point out with Tyreek Hill, Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes were not really a deep threat team last year. They could go deep, but a lot of those catches Tyreek was making were underneath, in which you get those big yak yards. Now, I'm no filmographer, so I probably will never be the Miami Dolphins film guy, but yeah, sure, Tua Tagovailoa there, he underthrew Tyreek Hill, and that's the video that we all seen go viral. But I don't think that's going to be a problem when it comes to this Miami Dolphins offense here, because we might joke about Tua's arm being a little bit less than average or whatever you want to go with it there. Maybe he's not driving the ball, still kind of recovering from that hip injury back in college, but they don't need to be an explosive offense.
No, but there was always the threat of Hill just catching a bomb, which made it more dangerous to be less of a threat in Miami. If he's still recovering from the hip injury, I think that's a big issue. They better get a new doctor in Miami. But if you want to be a Dolphins filmographer, you have to start with watching films of 1972, because unfortunately, I think that's the last time the Dolphins were a good team.
Throwing shots over here.
Let's keep it on this trend with teams that are now, in interesting quarterback situations, but a lot of talent around them in terms of receivers and running backs. What about the Seahawks? Any predictions for where they're heading? Are we actually going to see Drew Lock at quarterback? I know we've got Geno Smith there as well. We've got the running back situation where we've got Kenneth Walker coming in. Rashad Penny looked pretty good. How do you see things panning out for that?
It's going to be a battle between Locke and Geno Smith. Pete Carroll and John Schneider had their eye on Locke when he was coming out with the 2019 draft class. So they're hoping a change of scenery will help, and they'll see what happens, because the year before Russell Wilson was drafted in 2011, the Seahawks had Marshawn Lynch, they had the Legion of Boom, and they had Tavares Jackson, may he rest in peace, and Charlie Whitehurst, the quarterback. And they were willing to do that and see if either emerged. And when it didn't, they signed Matt Flynn. They drafted Russell Wilson. And Locke is on a one-year deal. And I think they say, okay, here's your opportunity. We're surrounding you with a lot of talent. Show it. This is your chance. So, if that doesn't work, Geno Smith, they're hoping he can be a good caretaker of the offense. I'm excited at running back, although it's kind of a fantasy logjam in a way. Penny was the best running back in the NFL in fantasy football the final 6 weeks. But I believe that, Carroll always wanted to have a 1-2 punch with him and Chris Carson that never materialized because they were never healthy at the same time. Kenneth Walker just jumps off the film at me. He's so dynamic. He's the best pure runner in this draft. He's got vision. He's got balance. He makes people miss in short space. Juke, cut back, takes off when he hits the second level, has gears. If Penny and Walker can stay healthy, maybe only the Browns have a case for having a better running back duo in the NFL. And that really helps the quarterback. And then you still have DK Metcalf. You still have Tyler Lockett. Obviously, their fantasy numbers are going to take a hit. Obviously, Lockett, because of the tremendous chemistry that he had with Russell Wilson. Can Noah Fant emerge? I think there's a lot hinging on the real wild card here, and I'm writing an upcoming article about the betting odds for the Seahawks, and I talk about this on the game day. Locke is the real wild card. I think everybody just assumes that he's going to stink, and I don't think we can necessarily assume that. I know he had a bad year last year, but look how Ryan Tannehill turned his career around when he left Miami. Different dynamics, but still, maybe a change of scenery and starting over here can help Drew Lock. That's the optimistic approach. If not, this is a transitional year. By 2023, I think, this is a transitional year where they're putting a lot of things in place eventually contend in the Carroll sort of view. They have a strong running game. They drafted 2 offensive tackles. They're proving the line finally. And they have 2 big play wide receivers. People say, oh, Wilson got traded. Metcalf's next. They never had any intention of trading Metcalf. He's more – I could be wrong. Look, they could trade him this offseason. But I don't think they will. It looks like they want to keep him and Lockett. There were trade rumors surrounding both. Neither turned out to have any smoke around them. So I think it's going to be interesting at running back because, unfortunately, if Penny can't stay healthy again, Kenneth Walker could have a ton of fantasy upside as a rookie. Otherwise, I think it'll be 60-40 split, probably with Penny leading the way. Fantasy players don't want to see that, but there's not that many running backs that totally dominate the carries in the NFL. So if you draft both, like say if you take Penny in the 4th and Walker in the 6th, you have that backfield on lockdown, especially in a best ball league.
Yeah, you're speaking like a true fan when I heard you saying that Drew Lock can have the career switch like Tannehill did. I think that's more your heart talking there, man. Like how
what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is we can't 100% assume that he's going to fail.
I hear you.
I realize that everybody, including yourself, and I'm not predicting, that he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback or anything like that. What I'm saying is he does have talent. He can throw good downfield passes. He's got 2 very good downfield wide receivers. Here's his chance to try and turn it around. If not, he's on a 1-year deal, and it could possibly be over. I think, respectfully, Major, that's what everybody assumes he's going to be bad.
Right.
If I had to bet whether it's going to work out, yes or no, I'm going to say no because, I'm not talking with my heart. But what I'm saying is we don't know for sure. Again, we're going back to my earlier point. Why are Drew Lock and Pete Carroll taking a chance on this guy and didn't draft or acquire anybody else? That's something I have to keep into the back of my mind. He's probably never going to be a fantasy quarterback for me other than a super flex. But what happens if he turns out to be a respectable NFL starter? I don't think we could say 100% that's not going to happen. We could say 70, 75%, but I'm not saying we always don't know for sure in fantasy. The best fantasy experts are right about 55% of the time.
Right.
Well, it might not be over for Drew Lock yet, but it is certainly over for the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast in episode 129. So we're going to move along here for this show. Scott, thanks for joining us. But hey, if you're listening to us right now, if you're watching us on the YouTube, whatever platform is that you got us on, stick around because Behind the Grind with Scott Engel is coming up next. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into the history of fantasy football and how Scott kind of made that meteoric rise throughout the fantasy ranks, way back when to where he is today. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.